Hello! This video will be a beginner guide on how to play the Vienna game with the white pieces. The Vienna game is an aggressive opening choice for white that doesn't actually require gambiting a pawn, such as the king's gambit with f4 on move 2. So it's something that can be played at higher levels while also maintaining attacking options. The Vienna game starts after we as the white pieces play e4, black responds with e5, and then on move 2 we play knight to c3. The idea is we don't want to play the usual knight to f3 because we want to maintain the ability to push our f-pawn to f4 and then open a file for our rook once we castle. This is what makes it a more aggressive attacking option than playing an opening such as the Italian. From here, we're going to take a look at 3 different moves: knight c6, knight to f6, and bishop to c5. These will be the 3 main variations that we take a look at throughout this video in the different chapters. The first variation we're going to take a look at is the move knight to f6 with the black pieces on move 2. This walks into what is known as the Vienna Gambit, where we can play the move f4 right away. The reason we're able to play f4 is that the move e takes f4 is actually a mistake, which walks into the move e5. Now you might quickly realize the knight has nowhere safe to go, except to go back home to its starting square. And then, in this position, we gotta remember that we want to protect ourselves against this annoying move, queen to h4 check, and we're able to do that pretty naturally by developing our knight to f3. And after a move such as knight to c6, we're able to take full control of the center with d4. From here, an example continuation could be something like d5, and then we're able to immediately recapture the pawn that we gambited earlier. And in this position, we have a lead in development, more space, and an extra pawn in the center, so white's already ahead out of the opening in this variation. One thing to note is that in this position, the critical move from black is not to take the pawn, but to counter gambit and play the move d5. However, when I looked on Lichess, this was played in under 8% of games under 1500 ELO, so if you're at a beginner level, this is going to be pretty rare. If you do see this, the only move I would recommend memorizing is f takes e5, attacking their knight, and after the knight captures our pawn, we're not going to recapture, we're just going to develop, and the game would continue from here. This is the main line variation. I'm not going to dive too deeply because of how rarely it's played at the beginner level, so I would just recommend memorizing those 2 moves. And those cover the main variations the main sub-variations under the immediate knight to f6 on move 3, or move 2. The next variation we're going to take a look at is if instead of knight to f6, black plays knight to c6, known as the Lange Defense. Now here, we're not actually able to play the immediate move f4, because after they take our pawn, e5 doesn't come with the same threat, so we actually have to set up the move f4. Now, in order to set up the move f4, the best way we can do that is by pushing our d-pawn to open up the bishop. However, before we play a move like d3, we don't want to block in our light square bishop, so we want to get the bishop out first. And that line of thinking is actually how I recommend remembering the move order is first to play bishop c4, and after a move like knight to f6, we can then move our pawn up d3 to open up the bishop. After bishop c5, we can then play f4. So that's what I mean by trying to set up the move f4. We want to push our d-pawn, but we want to get our bishop out first. So bishop out first, then d3, and then we'll play f4, being the main idea of this opening. Example continuation from here could be knight f3, and bishop to g4. And actually this position is also a transposition to the king's gambit declined. If you want more information on this position, you can look at my video on the king's gambit in the title card above. If instead of developing knight to f6, they try playing bishop to c5, this is actually a mistake. And the reason that this is a mistake is because the bishop had the important job of defending this g7 pawn. And unlike the Italian, where our knight's usually on knight f3, we can play this move knight or queen to g4 and immediately attack the g pawn. Black's only choices to defend this pawn are really between moving the bishop back or moving the king over. After the king moves over, we can play queen to f3, setting up a mate threat. And after an example like this, once again, we have a lead in development, and Black's king can no longer castle, and this rook is going to have a hard time developing. So this is already a favorable position for White. After a mistake being bishop to c5, which looks very, very natural, we got to remember that this bishop had a job, and we can punish by playing queen to g4. So these cover the main ideas of the knight to c6 variation on move 2 for the Vienna game. The last variation I'm going to take a look at is the move bishop to c5 on move 2. This is actually a pretty rare sideline, being played only 7% of the time, according to Lichess. However, the reason I want to cover this is because this is a pretty dangerous opening, because if you try playing the same ideas as before, this bishop will prevent us from castling and cause problems for the king. So if the move bishop to c5 is played, what I recommend doing is trying to punish this by setting up the move d4 instead. And the way we can set up the move d4 is with the move knight to f3. And after a move such as d6, we can already immediately play d4 because it attacks the bishop. And after this exchange, we already have more space and a lead in development, so this position is already playable for White, and this is the line I recommend taking if you see the move bishop to c5 on move 2. Important to remember this because if you try playing the same ideas as one of these knight moves, this will actually cause you a lot of problems with the bishop being able to see the king on g1 later on in the game. So just keep in mind, if the move bishop to c5 is played, we want to get an early d4 off instead and pivot off the usual f4 ideas. For this section of the video, I wanted to go through an example game where White was playing the Vienna game with the white pieces and was able to win the game in only 18 moves by checkmate. So we can see some of the attacking options and tactical opportunities that can become available in the Vienna game. So this game began with e4, e5, and knight to c3. This opponent walks into the Vienna Gambit with knight to f6, and then they're unprepared, and they played the natural-looking move e takes f4, walking into e5, and realizing that their knight has nowhere to go but to go back home. White played knight to f3 to defend against queen h4 check, and Black just develops as usual. In this position, White takes full control of the center with the move d4, and Black chose in this game to develop their bishop to b4, pinning our knight to the king. White chose to develop their light square bishop to d3, and Black chose to develop their knight. White recaptures their material, and Black chose to castle. Now in this position, there's a very nice tactic available for the white pieces. See if you can find it. Give yourself some time by pausing. This tactic is known as the Greek gift sacrifice. White plays the move, bishop takes h7 check. Now Black was very surprised because White just gave up a bishop for a pawn, which is a loss of material. They recapture the bishop, and then white plays knight to g5 check. After the king goes back to g8, white followed up with queen to h5 check, setting up a mate in one threat. Black tries to defend against this mate threat by moving the rook over, but the rook had the important job of defending the f-pawn, so white took the f-pawn with check. After another check and another check, in this position, white has a very nice move of castling kingside, setting up a discover check on the king with very deadly threats. Black tries to play d5 to get the bishop developed, but white doesn't care and just sacrifices a knight with check. After white takes the knight, white plays bishop to h6, discover check, and after the block, white can play queen takes g7 checkmate in only 18 moves. Game over. In this game, we got to see a lot of the tactics and attacking opportunities available for white in the Vienna game. Starting by not knowing about the Vienna Gambit, walking into this e5 move, walking into a Greek gift sacrifice, where we can then get a mating threat with our rook on the open g file. This highlights a lot of the different tactics and attacking opportunities that you can get if you play the Vienna game with the white pieces. And that's it for this video. If you learned something, please like, comment, and subscribe, because it helps out a small channel like mine greatly. I hope you have good luck in your future chess games. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care, thank you, and goodbye.